What is Dr. Rassie Erasmus thinking with the Springbok squad selection for the end-of-year tour? In this video, you are going to get a front row seat as I attempt to answer that question. It's a strong squad to be sure, but with no uncapped players present, fans have rightfully asked the question, was this a missed opportunity by Rassie not to bring in some uncapped or young players? After all, many of our players are now on the wrong side of 30, and a lot of them are going to be 35 or thereabouts, sometimes even older, come Australia 2027, and logic tells us that the chances are pretty high that not all of them are going to make it to the next Rugby World Cup. Not all Springbok fans were happy when Erasmus announced his Springbok squad. Take a look at this post from X. I particularly like this one. Yep, like sand through the hourglass. Okay, so let's get a few things straight. Firstly, one way or another, Erasmus has guided the Springboks to back-to-back Rugby World Cup titles. We've beaten the British and Irish Lions, recorded our biggest ever win over New Zealand, and we've also beaten the All Blacks 4 times in a row. Not to mention that we currently hold the Rugby Championship, Freedom Cup, Mandela Plate, and Qatar Airways Cup. I think we can safely say that the Springboks have never been this much loved by our country. So why are we still questioning the coach and his selections? Well, I think it's just the nature of it, to be perfectly honest. Plus, there are a lot of great players who, on the domestic or franchise scene, have proven themselves to be worthy of a Springbok call-up. Earlier in the week, I asked you on X, as well as on this platform, to name the players that you think are most worthy of a place in the Springbok end-of-year tour. Let's take a look at some of the names that came up. Cameron Hanekom, Kobus Visser, Edwil van der Merwe, Asenati Nklabalanye, Ruben van Heerden, Jean-Luc Dupree, Warwick Gelant, Ruan Venter, Sanele Nohamba, Faf de Klerk, Damian Willemse, JC Pretorius, Henko van Wyk, Corné Raal, Dan du Plessis, and Pepsi Buthelezi. Okay, now some of those players are already Springboks. You think of players like Damian Willemse and Faf de Klerk, for example, who have not been involved this year in the Rugby Championship and or the Ireland and Portugal test matches because of injury, so they are back in the mix as it turns out. But what that list of players does show you that we have an embarrassment of riches currently when it comes to depth in Springbok rugby, and that in itself is very exciting. Doc said it himself. There's no doubt that there are several unlucky players who could easily have made the touring squad, but unfortunately, we could only select 34 players. Now, just before we continue, guys, there's something very exciting that I want to tell you about. I have written my first book. Here it is. It's called How to Become a Sports Journalist. Now, my hope is that this book will aid people who are hoping to become sports journalists in the future. And even if you are already a sports journalist, this book might be a really good refresher for you. Something else that I can tell you is that I know that a lot of people who watch this YouTube channel happen to be the same age as me or older. That means that you might have kids who are of a high school age, maybe even university age, who are thinking about sports journalism as a career. I would highly encourage you to get hold of the book, especially for them. I'm going to put a link in the description area below where you can go and get that book. It's available as a paperback as well as an ebook on Amazon as we speak. Now let's move on to the topic at hand, and Cameron Hanekom is the player that I would like to particularly talk about right now. He is the name that was most popular when I asked you who you thought was most deserving of taking a place on the Springbok squad for the end of year tour, and no doubt he's a very talented player, very skillful. Maybe he's just the type of player that the Springboks need, but clearly just right now Rassie Erasmus has decided to go with the tried and tested. And I truly believe that Doc has a plan for this tour, as well as next year, the year thereafter, and then obviously the 2027 Rugby World Cup year. So who has made the squad? Let's take a look at who's in for this series against Scotland, England and Wales. We'll start with the props. Thomas du Toit, Vincent Koch, Frans Malherbe, Oxenchair, Gerard Steenekamp, and then a late call-up. He wasn't included in the original 34, but he is there now, Wilco Louw. The hookers are Malcolm Marx and Bongi Mbonambi, as well as Johan Grobbelaar. He is another man who wasn't part of the initial 34-man squad that was announced earlier in the week, but he is part of the setup now. And the reason that both he and Vilkulo have been brought in is because Jan Hendrik Wessels, who was originally named as a utility forward, has gone down injured, and he will not be taking his place on this tour. So the Boks increasing the size of the squad from 34 to 35 by including Grobbelaar and Low to take the place of Wessels. Let's move on to the locks. Eben Etzebeth, Franco Mostert is back. Ruan Nortje, who had a great rugby championship, and Adgeir Snyman is back as well. The loose forwards, Peter Steph du Toit, Sia Kolisi is our captain, Elrich Low, Kwagga Smith and Marco van Staden, as well as Jasper Visser. No place for Ben Jason Dixon, and again people will point out that someone like Cameron Honeycomb is not involved here. What about guys like Hachiva Daimani? Maybe you could even point to Ivan Roos. No place for those players at this moment in time. Let's move on to the back line. Jaden Hendrickse, Kobus Reinach and Grant Williams are the three scrum halves. It's entirely possible that each of them start one of the tests on this tour. Remember, we are playing three. And then with the fly halves, Marnie Lebok and Andre Pollard. That is unsurprising. No place for Sasha Feinberg and Gome Zulu. Clearly not over his injury just yet. In the centres, Lucanio Damien Dialende, Andre Esterhazen and Jesse Creel. Some exciting combinations that you can make out of that quartet. And finishing off with the outside backs, Kurtley Arendse, Apelele Fassi, Cheslin Colby, Willie Leroux, Makazole Mapimpi, Kanan Moody and Damian Willemse is back. Now, one of the things that I would like to address in terms of the backline players, Willie Leroux is there. He's on the cusp of achieving his 100th cap for the Springboks, and I think he's going to achieve that on this tour. And then it's going to be very, very interesting to see what Rassie Erasmus does with Willie going forward. Will he reach 100? And then it's a case of saying, Willie, thank you very much for your service. We're delighted with the decade or so that you've given us in the green and gold jersey, but now it's time to move on. Or do we keep Willie there for a few more seasons, a few more test matches, and see if he can maybe be available come Australia 2027? It'll be very, very interesting to see. But the message is very, very clear here for me from Erasmus. We've picked our strongest possible squad. We are the world champions, and we are going to Great Britain to win all three test matches. And given the squad, I think actually it would be seen as a failure if we didn't win all three. With all due respect to the Scots, the English and the Welsh, they are not Ireland or France, who right now you would have to say are the strongest European teams. And given our status as the world champions, I would expect us to win these three test matches. And quite frankly, I think everybody else should also expect us to win all three. That said, we know it will not be easy, but I do think we should expect 3 wins from 3. I also think that Doc will rotate the squad, just like we saw in the Rugby Championship earlier this season. Again, we have 3 scrum halves in the squad, for example. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they each start one of those test matches. Okay, so with that being said, what do you think? What is your opinion on the squad that Rassie has selected here? What changes would you have made? Who are the players that you think he has not selected that were deserving of an opportunity? Or are you happy that this is a squad that is clearly saying we are going to the UK and our plan is to win all 3 test matches and we are going to make a statement because we are the world champions? Let me know in the comment section down below what you think. And while you're down there, you might consider wanting to make a super thanks contribution. You'll see down there's a button with a heart and a $sign inside of the heart. That's called Super Thanks. If you click on that, you can make a highlighted comment. I promise that I will reply to it. I will also click the heart button on your comment and you will be invited to make a small contribution to my channel. It could be $1, it could be $10, it could be $1 million. I won't stand in your way if you feel so inclined. Why am I asking you to make a little bit of a donation? Well, guys, what I would love to do is go to Australia in 2027 and cover the Rugby World Cup for you on a daily basis with regular content. I'm going to need a little bit of funding in order to make that happen, and you can help me by hitting that super thanks button. If you're not yet ready to do that, well, you know what you can also do if you want to support me. You can hit the like button. You can even crock roll the like button if you like, and if you haven't already done so, I'd encourage you to hit the subscribe button. Now, Since we're talking about the Rugby World Cup and end-of-year tours, well, you know what? The last time that the Springboks played England, Scotland and Wales on an end-of-year tour was in 2021. We won 2 of the 3 tests on that occasion. Frans Steyn was actually in the Springbok squad, and I did an exclusive interview with him a while back on this channel. If you haven't yet watched it, it's over here for you to click on and you can go and check that out. And in addition to that, the other time that the Springboks played each of Scotland, Wales and England on an end-of-year tour was in 2008. We won all 3 of those, and Ruan Pienaar happened to be on that tour. I did an exclusive interview with him. That video is over here. Do click on them, do enjoy them, and I will see you in the next video.